fear, tragedy, victory, defeat. These are all ingredients we feast on in any video game's recipe. Even bad video games have goals, parameters, and expectations. The results vary from each manifestation, but usually there's a goal to achieve, a starting point and an end point. Sometimes the princess is in another castle, and sometimes she's not. But one thing is certain, video games are a diversion, always feeling a step behind a true worthwhile endeavor. Is that really the case, though? Your mileage may vary. Is playing a video game the same as reading Macbeth? No, surely not. And yet, I've played Dark Souls. Comparing a video game to a Shakespeare tragedy is easier said than done. Broad strokes could label Peach Juliet if one were so inclined, but there's something so rich about Dark Souls, about its setting, its characters, its lore, that could only be labeled as profound. Everything is so deliberate, which wouldn't mean anything if everything in Dark Souls didn't feel quite so eloquent. The game trusts you to ask the right questions, and in asking the right questions you're rewarded with reflective answers. How did I end up here in an asylum overrun with the undead? Well, what do you do with something you can't kill? And that makes you one of them, or perhaps something more.
There is an old saying in my family, "Thou who art undead art chosen, and thine exodus from the undead asylum maketh pilgrimage to the land of ancient lords. When thou ringeth the bell of awakening, the fate of the undead thou shalt know."
So there you have it. It's just a video game now. I'm not just another undead, I'm the chosen undead. Which castle is our princess in now? But Dark Souls doesn't give it away that easy. The first thing you learn when you travel to this land of the ancient lords is that you're not the first. Oh no, not that easy. In fact, there's a lot of would-bes and won't-bes, many tragic, who have come to this land on similar purpose, with the most heartbreaking among them admitting that he chose to be undead to pursue this.
I am Solaire of Astora, an adherent of the Lord of Sunlight.
The tragedy here is that if he is chosen, then you're not. If you're not, then you're no better than any of the things you've killed to reach this point. All not chosen, many may believe that they were. The subversion of prophecy is a wonderful narrative trick. How often is prophecy ever subverted in stories? Using Macbeth as the example, the witches get it right, and in Harry Potter, he was indeed the chosen one. In theater, they refer to the prophecy as Chekhov's gun. The Russian playwright Anton Chekhov said that you should remove everything that has no relevance to the story. If you say in the first chapter that there is a rifle hanging on the wall, in the second or the third chapter it must absolutely go off. If it's not going to be fired, then it shouldn't be hanging there. I would argue that Dark Souls subversion is intentional. This is a game you're not guaranteed to beat, thus you're not the first. Many come and many go, many prophecies unfulfilled, many rifles not fired. So what is it all about? What's the point? Why struggle through one of the most difficult video games of the past 5 years? First off, I can say with consequence that too much is made of the difficulty in the game. Way too much. It's a real shame that that's all one can glean from it. Dark Souls isn't hard to be hard, Dark Souls is telling a story. Death and overcoming death is at the very core of what Dark Souls is all about. If your character didn't die, and die often, the quest would have already been fulfilled. Trust me, watering down the difficulty or modifying its experience would cheapen the final result. The world needs more chosen undeads and less Commander Shepherds. The victory means more if it's ever in doubt. There's no saving you from an ill-timed thrust or a misjudged leap. You made the choice, you live with the consequence. And that's the impression you're left with. Your character feels every death just as the characters you kill time and time again feel every death. In Mario, it's a continue. The mistake didn't really happen. It's an eraser, a redo. In Dark Souls, it's a lifestyle. You own victory, and you own defeat. That metaphysical nature of Dark Souls' story is what drove me to create this video 5 years after the game's release. My first experience with the game saw me beating the first boss and moving on to one of the game's checkpoints, or bonfires as they're known, but that was it. I poked my head away from the bonfire, but never for too long. I was too scared to venture far. I wanted to feel safe, training wheels firmly attached. You see, the more you die, the more progress you can potentially lose. The fear of dying kept me from living. How many people do you know like that? Lofty, yes, but it's that kind of abstract thinking that the game encourages at every turn. Philosophy and all the wonderful speculation it creates always garners the most rewarding results here. It's a story about living and dying, about the cycles and seasons of life, about the journey through the light and the dark and all the failures and triumphs. Why then can't the dots be connected? Has it clicked for you now? Dark Souls is a truly visceral experience. The you that's on the couch is the same you that's in Lordran. The game speaks to you. Literally, it tells you that many people have come and played this game, and not everyone sees it through until the end. This character, this crestfallen warrior that explains this to you at the start of the game, relays this sad story.
What's wrong? Get a bit of a scare out there? No problem. Have a seat and get comfortable. We'll both be hollow before you know it.
He might be you if you decide it's just too vague or just too difficult to complete, or if you're just too afraid to lose progress. You understand what I'm getting at here. He's the player who can't beat Dark Souls. Now, to all the Dark Souls veterans, such a revelation is not a shock. It's already clicked with them. They already get it. But it extends way past this crestfallen warrior. He's just the mouthpiece. The whole world is teeming with people who didn't fulfill their prophecy. It's a shame, really. I've spent years attempting to convince people whom have quit to pick it back up as I eventually did. I've also tried to bring new people into the experience, but it's difficult now. More difficult than the game itself, it seems. With so many years post its release, the inevitable conclusion is that we all eventually go hollow. In the beginning, the world was gray. Nothing lived and nothing died. Then came fire, and with fire came disparity. Then came victory and defeat, life and death. But one day, these flames will fade, and it's up to you, chosen undead, to rekindle the flame. But even if such a quest should be fulfilled and victory achieved, one day, as with everything, the flames will fade again. That's the story in Dark Souls, but that's also the story of Dark Souls to me, to us. I never knew a game could create such a romantic, chaotic feeling of euphoria that it produces. But one day, of course, I won't play it anymore. And that's why this video exists so long after. We all have to resist the urge to go hollow, even if the endeavor is hopeless. So is Dark Souls a diversion? Yes, I suppose it is. But that puts it in some very, very fine company.